So welcome to Scrapbook Live. Today is Friday, August 29th, and I am Megan Jacks. I'm very excited to share this layout with you. It is from the Creative Memories blog. So this layout was shared, just a little over in early July. It's from the Poolside Paradise collection. It is super cute. It's got this fun banner detail, and they really take advantage of the particular paper in that Poolside Paradise collection that has, it looks like a big like square swimming pool in a way. It has the tile edge all the way around it and it's got the water in the middle. And they really take advantage of that across the top of the layout. So it makes it super quick and easy to put this layout together if you're using Poolside Paradise. However, I like the look, but I thought we could do this with other collections. We could just cut some little tiles. We can all be masons or whatever, tile people, and we can put those small pieces into place. So I will be working with the Hit the Road collection, and I'm going to make what probably will be the cover page of a vacation album that I have yet to start. So I'm going to go ahead and show you guys how I will do that. So let me switch over here to my overhead camera and we'll get going. So you can see here, I've got my handout. It is available on my website. So it is, the QR code will take you to the Creative Memories website where you can see these directions and if there's any other photos to go with this layout. And I've just copy and pasted the directions in here. But this handout is good to go. You can print it out. And you start with a blank piece of paper or a base piece of paper cardstock. You really only see a little bit at the bottom. I am using the medium craft that just recently sold out. Creative Memories is retiring it, which I'm really, really sad about because I've used this medium craft with some other projects within Hit the Road. So that's why it makes sense for me to do this. Now, as I mentioned in the original, in this layout, this paper across the top that you see this tile edges here and the pool in the middle is part of the actual paper. So you literally just have to cut off like a 5-inch section of that paper and it goes right across the top. Very easy to make that top part. The banner detail is a little bit more, using up some scraps, doing all those ribbon cuts. But we have an opportunity here to really play with our papers and to play with our scraps to be able to create our own tile edge. So you might want to pick a tonal paper. You might want to pick whatever paper you want to kind of showcase your photos. Or in my particular case, I'm going to let it just be kind of a scenic area, not so worried about putting photos there. Let me show you what I'm going to be using. So we know in the Hit the Road collection, they had this road paper, right? It goes off into the mountains and very, very pretty. Up here at the top, there's supposed to be some like more blue sky. Down here, the road just comes closer to you. I really just like this. I thought, well, that would be really neat to have up here at the top. So I trimmed it to be 4 inches because my tile pieces, I know from using this particular paper for another project, are roughly 1 inch all the way around. So I have a 1-inch tile border I'm going to mimic using other little pieces of the paper. So if you have a pen or a pencil and you want to write it down, just note that you need to put in place a 1-inch border around whatever piece of paper you use up here. So if you use a tonal paper, another piece of cardstock, we're going to come in and build a 1 inch here. A 1 inch, the 1 inch at the bottom will actually sit below the line and then 1 inch up the side. We're not going to come across the top. We'll leave it open just like they did here in the sample. So then it was kind of thinking about, well, for me, I'm not going to worry so much about putting photos in place because I could put a couple photos here and I might, and I could still have a little bit of title detail that comes across here. But I was actually thinking I was going to offset it a little bit and give myself more space on this side to put a title and then come in here. But I actually think I'm going to go ahead and I'm going to leave it centered. We'll kind of dry fit it and see what we think as we get this going. So I'll walk you through all the pieces. So my strip of paper here is 4 by 12, 4 inches tall, or so I should say this, 12 inches wide, 4 inches tall. Now I need to cut some various pieces to go around my set, and I have a bunch of stuff cut here. So I'm going to be working and showing you kind of fitting my puzzle together. Now I mentioned I'm going to use 1 inch pieces. they're going to be like 1 inch tall or wide, depending on the orientation. So across the bottom, they'll be 1 inch tall. I'm going to mimic that. It's kind of, you look in the corners, it's almost like they have squares. And I'm going to come in, I cut 2 1-inch squares out of the black tonal paper. So those are going to sit over here below. And the reason I put those in place is now I know I have 10 inches that I need to fill in with various pieces of paper. I could use all of the same pieces, probably not the black, but I could have used maybe a lighter color and I could ink the edges. I actually did ink the edges on all of these pieces, but I could have come in with like this yellow, and I could have used yellow all the way around if I wanted to. And I could have had all the inked edges. It would have stood out just kind of like these here do. Or I could leave a little space between them, and that would allow my my craft paper to show through. I would have to cut my edges over here so that I could have that craft showing through. But I want them to be all tight, right tight and next to each other. That's why I went ahead and inked the edges. Gives that a little bit of a kind of that weathered vintage vibe that I thought was really nice with Hit the Road. And it did help the paper stand out a little bit from each other. So I kind of know in general what I'm going with here is I've got the red tonal paper, and there's some yellow tonal paper, there's a gray, there's a blue, and I know I had, and mine are all 2-inch wide. The reason I went with 2 inches is because I can put 5 in the middle here. So I have 2 1-inch pieces on the outside, and then I'll have 5 2-inch pieces in the middle. And some of my pieces got a little messed up here. I think that goes over there. I know I have 3. I'm missing one of my reds, and it went over here to the side. That's not it. Let's see. I should have kept track. What I'm looking for is balance. When I had dry fit this before, this morning as I was working on this, I knew the order and I messed up and I should have paid more attention. So we'll go here. I do not want to have 2 yellows at the top. I'm trying to balance out the yellow because the yellow is it's a bright color and your eye is going to go to it. So I feel like I have this off by a little bit. So it's yellow, red, blue. This should be yellow, red, blue, yellow, red, blue, gray, yellow, red, blue, gray, and then starts with yellow. But I don't want that. I do not want to have 2 yellow pieces at the top. So let me see. If I just switch, maybe I'll just switch these 2. That'll work. That should be fine. It's gonna look like that. So you can see kind of where we're headed. I have mimicked the look of the tile and that framing in of the photo. It kind of looks, because of the colors, it kind of looks like Lego blocks. I could have used the green. They have the darker green that's the total paper in that Hit the Road, but it really blended in here. And I wanted to leave it just kind of nice and without too much more of the green. So that's where I'm headed with this. So I think I'm going to go ahead and I'm going to adhere these pieces into place because nothing's going to sit still for me. So I will go ahead, grab my adhesive. And this just sits right along the top edge. I could have cut off the edges on each side. I could cut off 1 inch because I'll be filling that in, but I left it open, or I left it just on there. That's fine. And I'm going to come in with some repo across the bottom edge here and along this side. That's going to let me get these tile pieces put on without having to necessarily try to put adhesive on each individual piece. I am not overly concerned about this bottom edge here. I want it to look clean, but it doesn't have to be perfect because I will have a border element that goes there. So I want to make sure I'm just nice and tight along the bottom edge of my this top strip. I do think one of the things is when you're piecing in the all of like 1 inch and 2 inch, sometimes you find yourself that you do your best to cut that perfect measurement, but what happens is you actually end up where you're going to have to overlap things a little bit, just because if you cut 5 different pieces or 6 pieces and you think you're cutting them at 2 inches, you might be actually cutting them at 2 30-seconds. And if you cut 2 in 1 30-second, and if you cut 6 30-seconds, that is like 1/8 of an inch extra or something, or just a little over 1/8 of an inch. So it can start to mess with things. So just give yourself some flexibility and know that you may have to do a little overlap, and that's okay. This piece in the middle, I'm going to center it and it's going to be just fine. So I think technically like this gray piece is a little shorter, but that's all fine. This punch over here is called the ribbon punch, ribbon edge, something along those lines. It came out with a couple years ago with one of the vote boxes that Creative Memories, or no, not the vote box, one of the secret boxes. It had the, I think the Shining Moments vote or secret box. And that had the sparkly 8x8 project in it. I think that's right. No, that's not right. I have that wrong. It came in a box, but I can't remember the one now. The first one we had, the first Shining Moments, we've had 2 of those ones. We had one that had this punch in it, and then we had a second one that had the circle layering trio punch. A lot to keep track of. So all these pieces just get put in here, and I went multicolored here. So I've got a little bit higher energy, a lot more going on. This is a title page. I'm not gonna have a lot of photos on here. It's meant to be kind of flashy. It's a statement page. I could have come in and done a lot more muted tones, maybe just picked a couple. I could have done like shades of green. What would have been nice too is to come in maybe just a little bit alternating the black and the asphalt gray would have been nice. Just kind of keeping it a little bit more tonal would have been an option there too. Now, after you get those all put into place, we've pretty much gotten ourselves through step 2. Because remember, step 2 is cutting a 5x12 piece of paper that already has the tile edge built in, but I've built my tile edge. So now we need to cut 4 6, it really should be 2.5 by 6 inch tall strips. So they're 2.5 inches wide out of a variety of papers. And I've done that. So I've got the red, I've got the black plaid, I've got the asphalt, and I've got the green. I am going to bring that green down. They use a mat in here, just so you know where this is coming from. This is a mat out of the Poolside Paradise collection, and they've trimmed it so that you can get those fun in the sun text in there. Now, I went through the mats for the collection here for Hit the Road, and I couldn't find one that really worked. A lot of them are a little bit wider. The wording is wider than that 2.5, and I didn't want to cut anything off. So if you're able to find a mat, that is a really fun detail to do. Something to consider as you're trying to build your strips here is to consider your mats. You may have mats that have a solid pattern on them, or they don't have like a journal box or a title or anything on them. And you can sometimes you can find alternative patterns, different patterns than you have in your paper, or you're just trying to use up your mats. So that can be an option here. The other thing that you could do is if you can't get it to work here in your banner, you could create a second banner that layers on top that would have it. So if you needed to cut it a little wider, say you needed more like 3 inches instead of 2.5, you could come in with a 3-inch banner over here that has that title. So that's definitely something to keep in mind. The other thing to note here is we're going to have to banner cut our pieces. And if you aren't familiar with the banner cut or the ribbon cut, you want to find the middle. So we have 2.5 inches. So I would use my ruler and I can find the 1.25 inches in the middle. You can also do a fold corner to corner and pinch. That tells you where the middle of, and then I would use a ruler to put a pencil line, maybe 1/2 inch, 3/4 of an inch, depending on how deep you want your ribbon edge to be. And then you just cut with your scissors. Now I do have the ribbon punch here, and so I can feed my paper in. I do need to keep track. This paper is a little bit directional. You can see I want to make sure my location markers are going the correct direction. So I'm going to put this in. This punch does do up to 2.5 inches wide, so it's going to work perfect for me. I'm going to push it all the way into the bottom, make sure I'm centered there, and punch. So you may or may not have a ribbon punch. I do wish Creative Memories would bring it back, because I mean, that's pretty slick. You can save the little triangles that come out. Those can always be a nice accent. But I'm going to ribbon punch a total of 5 of these pieces. One of them we will need to cut in half, and it will flank either side, the right and the left. Like I mentioned, I pre-inked my edges. I'm going to have to come in and ink the ribbon end. I wanted to show you guys cutting that ribbon end. I didn't want to cheat the whole thing. So we can kind of imagine how this looks. One of the things you can do, and I mentioned this in the blog post, is you can vary the width of these. These are all uniform. You could vary the width of them. So if you have scrap strips of paper, you just need to fill up the 12-inch lengths here. That's all you need to do. And you may be saying, but Megan, I don't see any yellow in here. And you are correct. I did not make a banner yellow. And the reason I did not have it be yellow, was because I'm going to come in, I think, with yellow, the paper. Let me grab this sheet, and I'm going to make it the matte. So I'll still have that pop of yellow in there, but I'm going to let it be the matte rather than a big chunk of it here that will pull your eye. The other thing I want to do is I think I'm going to have my red over here kind of to the middle. I'm trying to balance out my red situation because I've only have 2 pieces of red here. So I felt like I needed a little more red over here. So let's see if I can figure out. I think I'm going to do my asphalt. Well, maybe I need to put my red over here. But then I won't have any red over here. Oh, trying to balance out the colors. That's just so hard sometimes. I think I'll go like this. So you position them, but then one of them we are going to cut in half. That is part of step 4, is this border here was cut in half to flank the outside edges. You don't necessarily have to do that. You could position things and just cut off a little bit. 2.5 inches gives you too much paper to cover the width, so you will have to trim something. So I'm going to go ahead and I am going to cut this in half. I also need to remember to grab my little ink. My order box did not arrive, so I do not have any of the new ink products from Creative Memories. I'm very bummed. I will admit I'm not a huge inker. I did buy the brown ink pad because I figured I could use a brown ink pad to edge things. And that's really what I wanted to show too here. But I found recently one of these old cat eyes, so I'm going to use that because it's easy. And I can handle this level of inking. You can also use your journal pen the dual tip pen, and that's normally what I do. I actually found this ink pad in a box of stuff as I was digging furiously to find, I can't remember what I was looking for. I needed something for the kids and I couldn't figure out where we'd put it after our move, and I came across a box of stuff and this was in there. Barb saying I could cut the red and have red on both ends. I could, but I think I'm going to just use this neutral color. I feel like I didn't get that bottom edge inked very well in this one. How many of you guys use ink pads like this? Is this primarily what you're doing? I have not been one to try any of the other like techniques that get messy. I feel like this is fine. I did learn that I need to do my light colors first, because if I do get ink over time on my hands, I'm not getting it on my light colored paper because I'm not a clean person. This paper is all from Hit the Road collection. If I saw somebody asking their what this paper is. This is all from Hit the Road with the medium craft is in here, is the background. So now to put these in place, to get everything nice and evenly spread, I'm going to focus on the middle, which is right here, roughly, and I'm going to put my two papers here. Now I do have a border detail. They use the a sticker out of the Poolside Paradise. There's a sticker. I cut one of the strips of license plates. I thought this was fun. It's not going to focus. There we go. So you can see. And it's going to come across here. So I have a little bit of room. I want to come down kind of as low as possible, but I do want it to cover up. So it looks like here, if I come in, this piece is just a smidge over 5 or half an inch. So I'm going to go ahead and put this in. I've got 5 inches down. And so if I come down here and put this 5.5, the top of my banners will be 5.5 inches from the top, or I can think of it, they're going to be 6.5 inches from the bottom. I am going to start in the middle, lining up my paper, make sure my paper is nice and centered on my mat. And I'm going to go ahead and start putting on, let me move this up so you guys can see. I'm going to start putting some ink on, or some adhesive on. Make sure the tips of those banners have a decent amount of ink. Let me grab my straight edge or my T-square. Make sure I can get this nice and lined up at 6 inches. Nice and straight. The first one you put down is always the most important because it's going to set the tone for the rest. And then I will come in with these outside. I'll have to trim up the edge. That's why I didn't ink the outside edge of this, because I'll be cutting it off anyway. I'm going to be cutting off about 1/4 of an inch. Just getting these last few pieces. I wanted to give myself as much space here because my ribbon cutter is a little deep. I think I probably didn't pay attention to how deep it was. You can actually see in the original here that ribbon detail is not quite as deep. The deeper you make it, the less room I have in here for any kind of a photo. So I wanted to go ahead and bring these down so I'm not covering up the top of it with my little border strip. I can actually just kind of span the gap with the border strip. Last piece going in, and then I will clean up clean up those edges. And I'll put that border strip down as well. So you're starting to see some of those, the inking details. You can't really see them on the screen too much, but they are there. Cleaning up the back side, just getting that extra bit off. So that frames it nicely. Now what I'm gonna do is go ahead and put in this piece. And I think I'm gonna leave it like such. I had debated going and using a piece of maybe like the black tonal piece underneath. Let me just, I don't know. Oh, now I want a little bit of a border. I think I'm gonna go ahead and put a little, I'm gonna cut a narrow piece. So this is 5/8 of an inch. I think if I cut something that's 3/4 of an inch out of that black plaid tonal paper, the Hit the Road collection they did a great job of giving us some good tonals. This piece is still 12 by 12. I'm looking to see if I have any scraps. I don't think I have any scraps of that. I could just use black paper, but I really wanted to stay in. So I'm going to cut a 3/4 inch piece. This will sit up here. This will sit on it. It's a subtle detail, but I like it. I am going to quickly ink the edges. I've inked all the edges. That's my challenge with inking the edges, is I feel like you have to ink everything at that point. And then you're over there like spending 20, 30 minutes just inking edges. I scrapbooked one time with this lady who uses Kiwi Lane, and her pages were beautiful. As she had some pages that she showed me that she had made. And then I'm over here watching her actually make them. And oh my gosh, it is not a quick process. It is definitely time to cut the pieces, ink the edges. Beautiful, beautiful results, but definitely not quick. It would not be a power hour type layout, that's for sure. So I'm just brushing those along the edge. I have no idea if it'll be doing the same thing with those Memento ink pads. I know Jenny's on here. Jenny, can I do this? Oh, now Jenny's reminding me I need to go over here on this side because I cut these edges and clean up that edge and add the ink to that edge. So I did that. There, it's got ink on that side now. This may be the one and only time you guys ever see me do this stuff. Kim's over here saying inking is relaxing. Inking stresses me out because I'm worried I'm going to get it on my fingers and then I'm going to touch something that I don't want. I mean, it's all fine and dandy to leave your mark on your page, but I literally don't want it to be a fingerprint. So, time to put this piece on here, and then I will be able to. This is a really subtle detail, but I think it looks really cute. And it's a little more apparent on certain colors than others. Yep, so that's gonna sit in the middle. I'm gonna use some regular adhesive on this one. I want it to stay nice and secure. I also want it to be straight. So I'm gonna line this up and it's gonna sit, I'm gonna put it here just slightly below that 5.5 inch line and press it into place. So there we go. That's the basic concept. Now, I don't know, I did ink, like I inked along the top here, but inking people, I need to ink the rest of my page, right? I need to ink this edge, correct? You guys can't, there's like a delay and it drives me nuts because I'm gonna sit here and be like you guys don't know. I'm just going to assume I have to ink the rest of my page, my cardstock too. So I'm going to do that. Well, yes, Jenny is my inking etiquette, my inking protocol person that she lets me know, because it's an area that, you know, we'll see how this goes. Okay, there, it's inked. Everything's all nice and vintagey. I had already inked the top edge, just so you guys know, there is ink along this. There is ink, so I've got ink. Now, the other piece I need to add here is I do need to come in with my piece here, and I'm gonna just double check that a 4x6 is gonna fit on here. So I can do a 4x6 mat, and that's what I'm gonna cut out of this yellow piece. So I'm gonna trim this to, well, I'm gonna trim this to 6 inches first, because that leaves me with a bigger chunk over here. If I needed to do like a 4.5 by 6.5, I could do that. Well, I could do a 6, 4.5 by 6, cut this down to 4. I don't have a photo. I have to actually plan a road trip that'll work. And yes, I know, I need to ink it. Linda's like, she's like, I don't use inks. I don't see the point in edging. I can see the point to a certain extent. I sometimes feel like I can't justify the effort. And Michelle's saying she's never inked. She's not going to start now. I will say for me, it's probably going to be special pages if I'm going to do it, and feeling like it absolutely needs to happen. There are sometimes some papers just look better with that little bit of inking, simply because maybe they're the softer colors and you need some separation. I definitely have had that issue before, especially on things like Springtime Soiree, where everything was very, very, very soft. You needed that little bit of ink, even if it's just a subtle difference. It really, really helps. Okay, so here we go. We got that on there. It will use a 3.5 by 5 photo. Up here at the top, I've got some space. Now I could come in with some squares if I wanted to. They do use some really thin mats up here. So they have it where you could cut some using like some 3.5 or 3.25 inch cardstock squares. I'm going to show you what it would look like if I were to put in, well, I have some 3.5 inch square photo placeholders. You can kind of get the vibe for what that looks like up here. It really fades in. It's hard to see. I could do 3x3s up there, but then I've got a lot of, okay. Let me find, that's not the piece I already cut. I think what I need up here at the top, if I'm going to come in, is maybe I would come in with the gray up at the top. I'm going to cut some mats. I'm going to cut them at 3x3s. I don't want to really take up too much space up here. I'm going to cut these 3x3. And we'll see what it looks like. That would be closer then to like a 2.5 by 2.5 inch photo, which may not be ideal, but we can at least see what it looks like. I would probably use more across the top as like, they start to look like eyeballs. But I still could then come in with some detail there. Let me see, where is my project folder that has all of my stuff for, there it is. We know that Hit the Road had an amazing set of embellishments and stickers, but there is some amazing, amazing stuff in here that I could just come in here, even just like that, and say, Hit the Road. I've got a piece here. There's a ton of fun things to do. If I wanted to include some journaling, if it needed to be a regular layout, right? If I didn't need this to be a title page. So for me, so Helen, yeah, I've kind of bring it there that in this particular case, it really depends on what you need the layout to do for you. If I wanted it to just be a title page, I would probably come in here and do something just with titles across the top. Big chunky letters. I've got a lot to overcome. I've got some high contrast here that I would need to do. And I don't know what it's going to say. So I don't know if I'll put my title on here. So you guys may see me work this up as if it's just a single page, not a title page. And it would be like some photos here and then just saying, you know, hit the road and so forth. Like this would be maybe what I was using if I was just needed to be a photo page. I'm saying don't cover up the mountains. Yeah, don't cover, that would definitely be an option, is to keep them a little lower or smaller, or maybe I just do one. I feel like it needs a little bit of something up there. I don't know what, but so there's lots of things to play with here and to have a little bit fun. So put the titles on the bottom to the right. That's from, yeah, there's some options. There's various ways to make this work. And of course, if I really wanted to, I could just come down here and do this type of thing. There's all sorts of good titles and pieces here. If I really wanted to make this stand out, this actually would be a really good cluster there. I would say hit the road and like have in here the number of hours that you have with and the miles you drove or days. You have that little detail. So that would be an option there. So you guys are some stuff. You're definitely letting me know that I should not cover out the mountains. You do have a scenic part up here, and that is, I will definitely, I'll let you guys win on that one and I won't cover it up. So I think something along those lines is going to be, sometimes I don't want to overdo it, but yeah, I'm going to leave that as it is right there and call that probably pretty good in terms of what could happen. I don't know here what, I don't have a photo to put there, so it's going to be that white space. But you guys have some opinions, and I appreciate those opinions. I really do appreciate you guys chiming in with some thoughts on what I should do or not. So that's great, because I always like to see the opinions. I do agree that I like the road in the middle, but I think covering it up the mountains kind of loses that appeal. The one thing you could do there is, depending on your road trip, if you're not going to the mountains, you could cover up the mountains, because if you don't go there, you don't need them. The other thing, so if I felt like I was going someplace, I mean, I really can't get anywhere in Arizona without going through some mountains. They don't look like that though. They're a little more brown. So, all right. And Gail's like, it's a lot of work for one photo. It is. This is why, for this particular instance, it would be more like a cover page where you are really wanting to make a statement to kick off your album in a very festive, creative mood. And then the rest of your stuff is going to be yours. So like this, I might actually have like that. Sometimes when we get going on the road trip, is everybody like, okay, let's take a quick selfie from the driver's seat. And it's a picture of everybody in the car. It's that type of photo. And then this kicks off the rest of your album with the rest of all the other things. Or it could be the end of your road trip. It depends on how things are going. So, all right. Thank you guys so much for watching. I will be traveling for the next 2 Fridays. I won't be at home. I'm going to be in Indianapolis. I'm going to be at an advisor event with Tessa. She's hosting one. And then I'm going to be at the next weekend is her customer retreat. I'll be there as well. Super excited to see some of you people there. And then, so I'm not sure if I'll have a Scrapbook Live on the next 2. It won't be, I definitely will have at least one Friday. Well, I won't have something. I'm going to try to do something one of the Fridays. It'll probably be pre-recorded though. So we'll just take a good instance. Jenny's very smart. Jenny is in there, Jenny Mancini is in there like, oh, that'd be a peekaboo pocket. You guys, I'm going to come over here and show you. This is 5. If you made this 6 inches tall, this whole thing could flap up. If you made this 6 inches and put it inside a peekaboo pocket, it could flip up. So keep that in mind. It won't work for my exact layout because I'm not quite at 6 inches. I would have to come down here and make that cut, but keep it in mind. Keep that 6 inch, flip it up. All right. Thank you so much for watching. I will see you all soon. I'll get this posted if you came in late. I'll have it all up to YouTube, and I'll get the final layout all worked up. Don't have much left to do on it, and get that shared with you guys later. All right. Thanks, everybody. I'll see you soon.